We have the most enormous big gay rainbow across my electorate.
I'm a lot of things, but with due respect, Helen, I'm not your boyfriend, that's for sure.
What New Zealanders care about is the size of the sausage, not how it's delivered.
Yes, well, indeed. Today on the whip, the final whip of 2025, a mega merger announced this week. Ministry for the Environment folding it in with urban development, transport, and natural fit. Some Reserve Bank tweaks this week. And David Seymour, he is not letting go with the Treaty Principles debate for next year. The Treaty Principles 2026, does it have a ring to it? Are you ready for it? And what's in the political Santa sack for 2026? With me this evening we have Maria Slade, property editor at Business S. Maria, kia ora, nice to have you here.
Kia ora.
And Fran O'Sullivan in the Wellington studio, NZME's editorial director of business. Fran, great to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you.
And Maria and Fran are joined by former Green MP Sue Bradford. Sue, lovely to have you here.
Kia ora Wallace, kia ora koutou.
Now, very good. Now, just before I get in to the program, this new poll announced earlier, 1.5 hours ago, new poll putting Labour well ahead of National in the box seat to form the government. So this is the post-freshwater strategy poll. Labour surging to 38% support, opening up this 8-point lead over National and putting the party back in pole position there. Contrast, National has fallen 8 points. They're now sitting at 30%. I know Fran O'Sullivan polls, they bounce up, they bounce down. Anything in this for you this evening?
Well, it kind of explains. I was at the press gallery party a short while ago in Wellington, and Chippy, Chris Hipkins, was holding court in one of the corridors, looking very buoyant and chipper, and the PM nowhere to be seen at the point I left. So, right. And not too many senior ministers around. Now, admittedly, that was only 7 o'clock, and that party tends to get going a bit later, but that's a sizable gap. So they will be doing a bit of soul searching on that. I have to wonder, and I haven't really checked when the poll was taken, but the ding-dong between Ruth Richardson and Nicola Willis over the last week would not have raised any confidence in the government.
Oh, that's interesting. Maria?
Well, I just congratulate Fran for dragging herself away from the party.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That was my first question.
Yeah, well,
it's so good to have you here, Fran. I know that that's a big one.
Very
I
beautiful.
did think it was tomorrow.
Look, what struck me was the big difference from the TVNZ poll. Was it last week?
Yes,
showing that the Nat's slightly ahead, but. Still bad news for the Greens. They were well down in that poll, and they're down 4 points to 8% in this one.
That's right.
So they've got some issues at the moment, and you wonder what's doing it really, whether they've been, it's the Te Pāti Māori contagion, sort of people a bit wary of more left-wing groups at the moment, or what it is. But yeah, that's certainly a challenge for them.
Okay, so what do we got? We've got Labour 38, National 30, New Zealand First 9, ACT 8, Green Party Sue 8, other for Te Pāti Māori at 2%. How do you read this?
Well, as others have said, the polls are all over the place, so you don't know really what to trust at the moment because it's totally bouncing around. And I've seen the figures on seats in the House at the moment. It's still shaky, fairly evenly balanced. But I can imagine that Christopher Luxon may be exiting the party early tonight, as it sounds he may have. Maybe the Taxpayers Union efforts to undermine his leadership are bearing fruit. The whole campaign around Ruth Richardson and trying behind the scenes of trying to undermine Luxon's leadership has been going on fairly openly for a few weeks now. So maybe in the right-wing circles it's really started to pay off. I'm still fairly mistrustful of where Labour's going. But they've obviously had a big jump for some reason, and I wouldn't quite know why.
Okay.
I feel sorry for the Greens because I don't, again, like you said, Maria, I'm not sure why or what they've done of late.
Yes.
That would indicate why this drop in several polls has happened.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Maria.
Well, the Taxpayers campaign, the Taxpayers Union campaign has been pretty interesting. I don't know that I'd give them that much credit, although they have made a lot of noise about this, and a lot of people in the business community are sort of saying, well, you know, they're banging on about our debt, but in the grand scheme of things, our debt to GDP ratio is not that bad. So really, I don't know that, people on the extreme right might agree with them, but I think a lot of people in the centre would, it's noise, really.
Okay, all right. Disclaimer here. I too got that fudge, and yes,
So did I.
Yeah, and I ate it. It's 7:37 now. To the quiz. We do a quiz every week on the Whip. Now, what was the phrase that the then Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern uttered after the memorial in the wake of the Christchurch mosque shooting? Have a listen.
These stories, they now form part of our collective memories. They will remain with us forever.
So, what was the phrase that Prime Minister Ardern uttered after that? What was the phrase? Quite famous, 2101. And actually, just touching on this briefly, because it is one of those most unforgettable moments. The terrorist attack at Bondi Beach stopped the world in its tracks. Police are planning to lay charges against the surviving gunman today. And the first funeral services for victims are beginning to take place. Fran O'Sullivan, you, like many, or like everyone really, would have been following this as well.
Yeah, I've been absolutely glued to it. I'm a subscriber to the Sydney Morning Herald, and it's been wall for wall since Sunday evening. But the thing that surprised me about this was just how graphic the video. They have actually shown the killing of the senior shooter, the 50-year-old. It's been quite surprising, and normally that's kind of blocked out a bit, but it's just constantly on repeat, and I have found it to be very, very graphic all the way, and I guess it's quite difficult because there'll be the gathering in Aotea Square at the weekend on Sunday. And it will be very interesting to see whether that's civil, whether it's predominantly the Jewish community, or whether it's a great deal of other New Zealanders who are concerned at the rise of anti-Semitism and worry about that resulting in something similar here, or whether it's also going to result in the Palestinian, Free Palestine groups also coming out. So which, it's the Jewish community has tended to be pretty careful about what it does in public because, they have been concerned for some time about safety. So I think politically it's going to be pretty difficult, and Sue, you'll have a better sense of that. But the Greens wearing the keffiyeh and all of that in Parliament, I mean, has that time now gone? Is it a different sensibility now? I don't know, but I wonder about it.
Sue,
kia ora. First of all, the tremendous. I would like to acknowledge the tremendous grief that Jewish people in Sydney, in Australia, here in Aotearoa and all over the world are suffering. And I'm aware of how close the New Zealand and Australian Jewish communities are and this tremendous loss that so many people are feeling. It's endless and deep, just in the same way that the mosque attack. And I don't like tying politics too closely to this, but of course Benjamin Netanyahu did it immediately. And as someone who stands strongly for the Palestinian people as well as for Jewish people, I'm very aware that many Jewish people in this country and around the world are just as opposed to the genocide in Palestine and to the loss of life and damage to the people there, and hold that as close to themselves as they do their very Jewishness. And both those things are happening in parallel, and it's very hard for people right now. So I'd like to acknowledge that as well.
Kia ora both. There are many layers, many angles to this shocking event, Maria. I mean, we had, for example, thinking of the heroes, the many heroes. One, for example, we profiled on the panel earlier. You have a man from a Middle Eastern country. He is applying for residency and he hasn't been able to get residency, but he was the person that went up to that bridge and kicked that rifle away. We had his lawyer on the show earlier. What did you take? What have you taken from this?
Well, the one thing I I acknowledge what Sue was saying about the grief in the Jewish community, absolutely, obviously. I just think a rally in Aotea Square, I mean, you're not going to stop people, I suppose, but I would have thought that's the last thing we need just at the moment. I think you just need to dial the whole thing back. I think Benjamin Netanyahu did politicise it straight away, saying that Australia hadn't done enough to clamp down on anti-Semitism. Well, that may or may not be true, but I would have thought we should be clamping down on all forms of discrimination, actually. The shop owner who disarmed one of the gunmen was a former Syrian police officer. So this crosses all boundaries, really. This is just people being needlessly murdered, basically. That's what this is about. And, yeah, I would really like, I mean, it's so difficult, but I really would like to see the politics taken out of it.
Kia ora both. Kuia all, Maria Slade, Sue Bradford, Fran O'Sullivan. Now, talking about this, I mean, another big issue this week was this announcement of a big ministry change in the last few working days before Christmas, this mega merger forming a ministry of cities, environment, regions and transport. Many questions to be answered. First things first, many have been asking, Fran, how we should pronounce the acronym for this ministry. Is it MCERT? Chris Bishop says EMCERT. I mean, what do you think of this mega merger?
I don't have much faith in mega mergers as such. I mean, I do think there's perhaps a case where you set up something totally new and start it from the get-go. Mergers tend to be clumsy. We've seen what's happened under the Labour government. They did a lot of mergers. And it's very easy for things to lose traction while mergers are happening. Some of the criticism around MB, which was again a smash-up of innovation, commerce and various employment back in the day. It took a long while for that to find its feet, and the criticism was that it wasn't actually delivering the outcomes that it needed to deliver. And so I think there is a case for getting rid of some ministries and perhaps putting some elements of that in somewhere else. But to approach it as a merger when you're just a few months out from an election seems to me a bit of a waste of policy time, frankly.
Sue, I'm just looking at the fit here. For example, the Ministry for the Environment, I mean, what do? They've got a wide brief including air, fresh water, marine, that type of thing, right? And then you've got Ministry of Housing folded into that, and then Urban Development, and then Ministry of Transport and Local Government Functions. It's not just a mega ministry, it's a juggernaut.
And it's absolutely ridiculous. And MB's actually a really good example. I don't think it's ever found its feet. It's a disaster still in many respects. They should never have brought those departments together. And this is even worse. And I, as a former MP, I'm struck by the timing because this is just before Christmas. So they've dropped it on the country. I've seen very little analysis or commentary on it coming from sector groups or outside organisations, and I think it's a time of year. So I think the government's done it very deliberately. Let's just quietly do this, but it's a total disaster on all fronts for each of those departments, for the specialised knowledge and skills that people within those departments have built up, this ramming together of departments that don't belong together, and then it's a way of delaying, as Fran said. Actually, it hides and delays amidst the restructuring and loss of jobs the actual issues that those different departments are set up to address. It hides the fact that the government probably doesn't want to do much in any of those areas, or will just charge on with its existing program.
Or, Maria, would it be better than the current model? I mean, the current system, some would say, of ministries is fractured, has a plethora of acting rather than permanent chief executives, and, it might be better. I mean, what do you think? Not a great response from Fran and Sue. Do you have any other ideas?
Oh, love a mega merger. Te Pukenga went so well, didn't it? Look, there may be some rationale here. Obviously, they're bringing in these RMA reforms and local government reforms. So there's one argument that it's needed to be able to underpin the RMA reforms. But then we haven't even seen the detail of how those are going to work, the bodies that will be the pillars of this structure. We haven't even seen the detail of that yet. So are they putting the cart before the horse? It seems a bit like, oh, yes, let's just merge a whole lot of things. That'll solve some problems, I don't really have great faith either.
Fran?
Yeah, I think one of my concerns is it might remove some policy contest. when it should exist. And you're thinking about environment, just the voice coming through, because really, like, it sounds as if you're going to have one uniform voice and basically be geared to get stuff done, and that's where the government's coming from. But sometimes you do need some contest in the system.
No.
And right alongside that, Fran, the ultra-centralisation which this government seems so determined on, like anything to remove localisation or focus on an environment and housing or urban development, all these things are about local and responding to what's happening locally and dealing with it locally, and all this is about centralising to the max to the government, and it's the opposite direction at this time.
Interesting.
To which we should be going.
Sue Bradford, Maria Slade and Fran O'Sullivan this evening on the final whip of 2025. And that quiz question again, in the wake of the mosque shootings, then Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern uttered a very famous phrase. If you've just joined us, what was that phrase? 2101. Text us right now. On to this. It's been a busy year for ACT leader David Seymour. He's seen off 2025 launching broadsides at his rival Chloe Swarbrick. He told the Herald that Swarbrick had become a demagogue and had, quote, dark motivations. He then compared himself in the Treaty Principles Bill with British politician William Wilberforce in his efforts to end the slave trade. And David said, well, he's not letting go with the Treaty Principles debate for next year. Around the panel here, around the whip, are we ready, Fran O'Sullivan, for another year of discussing the Treaty Principles Bill? Your thoughts?
I think, to be honest, I think there's more important things to be thinking about. I mean, what I'd like to hear from this government, and maybe there'll be an opportunity around Waitangi and PM's State of the Nation, is I'd like to see more forward-leaning stuff. Where are they sitting on settlements? Where are they sitting on devolution as much as it should occur? I think the new Maori Queen, she was interesting. I mean, she was pointing to a future where, Maori would actually get out and carve a very interesting, independent, international focus, growing companies, all the rest of it. And I found it quite refreshing. And I think and there was kind of a bit of leadership there, that if you are a centre-right government, rather than focusing on negativity, why wouldn't you actually, even given your own philosophical stance, why wouldn't you look to build? And that's what I would like to hear more of personally.
Okay. All right, Maria. What do you think?
Oh, give that baby a rest. Have we not had enough?
Well, but in his mind, he sees this. He sees what you are not seeing. This is fundamental. It's like abolishing the slave trade.
Well, to the ideology of the right-wing voters of ACT, perhaps. But look, he's saying he doesn't want to bring the bill back, but he does want to reignite the debate. Luxon's ruled it out of future coalition negotiations, so all he's doing is appealing to his base. It's dog whistle politics, and I find it so interesting that he's accused Chloe Swarbrick of being a demagogue. I looked up demagogue, by the way. It is a political leader who appeals to popular prejudices rather than using rational argument. Pots calling kettles black, perhaps?
I don't know, Sue. It might be something in that. I mean, David Seymour saying that Chloe Swarbrick attacks him after his press debates, that she's way too intense.
She denies the accusation. I agree with Maria completely about pots and kettles here. In terms of the Treaty Principles Bill and his absolute obsession with it, it's appealing totally to that far-right racist constituency that he seems to appeal to so much.
Let's be careful about calling people names like that, Sue.
Oh, okay.
Well, just saying.
Yeah, fair enough, but that's how I feel.
Okay.
But he uses... I don't know how to put it politely, but racial division and the creation of racial divides as a deliberate policy on and on, over and over, right through this whole period he's been in government and prior. He is obsessed with it. And this very thing that he's doing, the manipulation and determination to try and split people in this country apart, tangata tiriti, tangata whenua. To me, that is a characteristic of a demagogue, and I cannot see for the life of me what the dark motivations he talks about. He talks about Chloe Swarbrick as having dark motivations, and I'm going, goodness, that's heavy. What's that about? What's he
Okay.
afraid of? What's going on there? Because Chloe, and he also accuses her of not being substantive or talking about policy. Of all the Greens, she's got heaps of policy. It's one of the strengths of the Greens. So I do not understand what he's saying here.
Just moving on from this, I'm just as a side note, Fran, I'm just linking this story back to the poll and looking at New Zealand First in the driver's seat again. Do you think that, in your view, New Zealand First will work with ACT again?
Oh, look, they'll work wherever works best for them.
Right.
I think the interesting thing to me, the question is whether they'll work with Hipkins when it comes down to it. I did talk to one or two very senior people in Labour and basically posed the question, basically Winston has said he won't play ball if Hipkins is, the leader of Labour. But in actual fact, Hipkins is in a much stronger position than when he got turfed as Prime Minister. I mean, he's increased the vote, as we've seen tonight, and admittedly they bounce around a bit, but his leadership seems quite secure now. If you went back about a year or so ago, there were suggestions that he also might be vulnerable, and particularly to someone like Kieran McAnulty,
Yes,
who's
that's right.
got a rather hungry look to him and is, is actually, he is certainly a leader in waiting, and much the same way as, Chris Bishop on the other side, and they often joke about it. I mean, their time may well come, but the big thing to me is Winston, if National continues to decline, will they be able, if and that carries through to the poll date, will they be actually able to scrounge up sufficient to form a government? And if you're seeing difficulties on the other side as well, and it can be quite complicated just looking at it, would Winston go on board to squeeze out Te Pāti Māori? Would he make an overture? And when I was discussing this with a very senior person in Labour, and I said, well, hang on, Fran, hey, we're politicians, work it out. Yes, things are as they are now, but we've got our ways, and, if a fig leaf's needed, basically we'll find one.
This is fascinating, straight from the press gallery. I'm loving this. You're on the whip. You can't hear this anywhere else. Anyway, look, we'll come back to you, Maria and Sue, but I want it because we have a listener on the line. Again, what was the phrase that the then Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern uttered after this, after the memorial in the wake of the Christchurch mosque shooting? Have a listen.
These stories, they now form part of our collective memories. They will remain with us forever.
And with us, Sue on the line. Kia ora, Sue.
Hi, Wallace.
How are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, so what was the phrase?
They are us.
Pretty simple, isn't it?
Yep.
Pretty
simple and inclusive.
Simple and inclusive. And one that, do you think, will stand the test of time in our history or not?
Absolutely.
Very good. Nice to have you listening, Sue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Very good. All right, that's it. They are us. Recall that, Sue Bradford? That was a big moment, wasn't it?
I think we all do.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. All right. Now, I just want to sneak in this before we just a word on this. The Reserve Bank announced today it would go ahead with its plans to reduce the amount of capital banks are required to hold against their loans by about $5 billion overall. So the rate has been increasing in stages since 2019 to shore up the ability of banks to withstand the shock. So a key change that Aussie-owned banks will need to have a base capital of 12%. It's kind of like a shock absorber, really. Under Adrian Orr, that would have been built to 16%. What did you think, Maria? You would have seen this maybe covered it.
The banks have been arguing for a long time that it's too conservative, and it was costing a lot of money to build up that capital adequacy, and the Reserve Bank has consulted on this. They've gone through a whole process, and they have made recommendations, and they've agreed to go with this option. ANZ and Westpac apparently suggested an option 3, which was a lower figure.
Right.
And the New Zealand Banking Association had pressed for greater alignment with international approaches. So, not everyone agrees with their decision, but they seem to have maybe taken the middle line, and it seems to be generally accepted that the previous requirements were a bit too heavy.
Question is, Fran, as the Dr. Anna Bremen said, the governor, the Reserve Bank governor, you've got to pass on the savings. Do you think they will?
No, I have no reason to think they will. When do they ever pass on? If they do, it'll be a smidgen. It's just not the nature of the big Aussie banks, I'm afraid. If they pass on something, it's minuscule.
Fran, I don't know if you and I have ever been in such agreement on any political program.
This is a worry.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say. I mean, in a time when the international finance markets could crash at any moment, like the danger of the risk from the climate crisis, from what's happening in the markets, from Trump, from everything that's happening internationally, like to lower our capacity to deal with risk with these banks that are so powerful and wealthy just seems crazy, because who's going to come with their hands out? The big four banks will be first in the queue. If there's a crisis and they want a state bailout from us, the taxpayer.
I believe they're pretty safe, but I totally agree with Fran. It'll be a cold day in hell before they passed on the full benefit they may gain from this saving.
A political shock is happening here tonight. Sue Bradford and Fran O'Sullivan have agreed. You've heard this first. It's actually live in the studio. Hey, before we go, we've only got a couple of minutes. One final question for around the panel on the web. What should be in Santa's sack for New Zealand voters in 2026? Fran O'Sullivan.
Oh, ice, more of the same. I think, Ruth had a point, Ruth Richardson. I think we've got quite a bit of way to go. I would say I'd be looking forward to Santa's sack probably a year or two out rather than this year.
All right, Sue Bradford.
A Labour Party that would seriously would take on redistribution of wealth and protection of the climate seriously enough so that people could genuinely vote for them when looking for a change of government, and go past just retaining the neoliberal orthodoxy that this Labour Party seems convinced.
Santa sack for next year, Maria Slade, briefly.
A government that butts out of Auckland town planning and lets Auckland Council decide for itself what sort of intensification should occur and where. I'm a bit over you, Chris Bishop, I'm afraid to say.
You folk are amazing tonight. I'd love to hear more. Anyway, Fran O'Sullivan, Maria Slade, Sue Bradford, kia ora. Merry Christmas to you all.
Same to you, Wallace.
Merry Christmas. Season's greetings.
And hope to see you all back next year. Have a good one. Emile Donovan is next.